Welcome back, dear family, to Vintage Mike Tales. I just want to take a moment to thank you for always being here. For your love, your time, and your constant support. It truly means the world. So sit back, relax, feel every heartbeat and every passion. Let's begin. The sun had begun its slow descent over Chicago, painting the city in warm amber tones that danced across the glass towers. Katherine Davis sat at the small kitchen table of her modest apartment, quietly sipping her tea while staring at her father's worried face. Clark Davis had always been a proud man, his dignity carved through decades of hard work, but now it was worn thin. The pandemic had left him reeling financially. His small business shuttered, and his savings evaporated. "Katherine," Clark said quietly, avoiding her gaze, I don't know how I'm going to pay this loan. Don Bradford, he's not the forgiving type, and now he's no more. But his son, Kelvin, might be even more ruthless. She reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "Dad, we'll figure something out. I have my job. We can manage." Her voice carried the calm she always wore as a shield. Inside, she felt a storm. She loved her father fiercely. He was all she had, left after her mother's passing. But the reality of the debt loomed, like a dark cloud over their lives. A knock at the door startled her. Clark frowned. I didn't expect anyone today." Katherine rose, curiosity tinged with unease. "I'll get it." She opened the door to reveal a tall, impeccably dressed man, his presence commanding yet calm. Mid-30s, navy suit perfectly tailored, sandy brown hair slightly tousled by the breeze. But it wasn't just his appearance. There was an energy about him. Composed and confident, yet warm. That made her pause. "Mr. Davis?" His voice was smooth, confident, and unexpectedly gentle. "I'm Kelvin Bradford." Clark stepped forward, shaking his hand. "Kelvin, thank you for coming. Please come in." Katherine stepped aside, letting him in, but her gaze lingered. Kelvin's eyes swept the room, then locked on hers. And in that instant, something inexplicable happened. Time seemed to slow. He didn't just see her face or her body. He saw her presence, the subtle grace in the way she carried herself, the intelligence reflected in her eyes, and the warmth she radiated toward her father. Her pulse quickened as if sensing his stare. She felt seen, truly seen, in a way she hadn't in years. Clark cleared his throat. "Katherine, this is Kelvin Bradford, my old college friend's son. He's here about the loan." Kelvin's gaze softened, yet held a spark she couldn't name. "It's remarkable to meet you, Katherine," he said, his voice low and magnetic. "There's a presence about you, something rare. I can't explain it, but it's impossible to ignore." Katherine blinked, taken aback. Thank you," she said cautiously, a blush creeping over her cheeks. For Kelvin, that moment was enough. He knew, without fully understanding why, that he wanted her in his life. The pull was immediate, undeniable, and deep. Love at first sight doesn't always need explanation. It's the sudden, complete certainty of connection. Still holding Katherine's gaze briefly before turning to her father. But in that fleeting moment, he had decided he would do whatever it took to have her in his life. She was extraordinary, and he knew it instinctively. Clark, oblivious to the tension, clearly nervous. "Kelvin, I was just explaining to Katherine the situation with the loan." Kelvin turned to him, his expression kind but serious. "Yes, I understand. I wanted to check in personally." "1 year to repay, correct?" Clark nodded. "Yes. But after the pandemic, well, things didn't go as planned." Kelvin's blue eyes softened as he glanced back at Katherine. "Mr. Davis, I believe we can find a solution. A rather unconventional solution." Katherine tilted her head, intrigued despite herself. "Unconventional?" Kelvin inhaled slowly, his gaze unwavering. "Katherine, I saw you the moment I walked in, and I realized something." He paused as if weighing his words. "I want you to come live with me for a year, as my fiancée or girlfriend, whichever you prefer. After a year, your father's debt is cleared, and to make it worthwhile, I'll pay you $5 million if, by the end of the year, you don't love me." Katherine blinked. Her mouth went dry. The words hit her like a thunderclap. A mix of incredulity and outrage swirling in her chest. "Excuse me, did you just say live with you?" Kelvin nodded. "Yes, you will live with me. You can choose the title, girlfriend, fiancée. Your father's debt is the first priority. But if in the end your heart finds its way to me, You will be my wife and I will be your husband. If not, the money is yours, no strings attached." Her chest tightened. She felt insulted. Her pride stung, yet a practical voice whispered in her mind. $5 million, 1 year, her father's debt gone. This is outrageous," she said, stepping back. "You think I could be bought? That my father's life and my love are transactional?" Kelvin's expression remained calm, his voice soft but insistent. "I'm not trying to buy you, Katherine. I'm giving you a choice. I'm giving you freedom. Freedom to decide if love can exist between us." Her eyes narrowed. "I don't even know you." "I don't. I will never marry you. I will never love you, ever." Clark's eyes darkened, his jaw rigid. "Excuse me," he said, his voice firm. "You will not involve my daughter in this. She is not part of your calculations, Mr. Bradford. This arrangement is unacceptable." Kelvin paused, surprised but calm. "Mr. Davis, I understand your concern, but I assure you, enough." Clark interrupted, his tone ironclad. "Katherine is not a bargaining chip. She is my daughter. I will not allow her to be used to settle debts, no matter how generous your offer." Katherine, standing silently nearby, felt the weight of the moment. Her father's protectiveness and dignity made her heart ache with love and respect. She also felt the pull of curiosity. The man before her exuded a quiet strength and calm, confidence that drew her attention. Kelvin inclined his head slightly, a small, respectful smile on his lips. "Mr. Clark, I understand how you feel, but the offer still stands." And with that he turned and left, leaving the room heavy with silence. Katherine retreated to her room, closing the door with a firm click. She sat on the edge of her bed, her mind racing. Her father needed her. The debt was insurmountable, especially with the pandemic hitting their finances hard. Yet the thought of being under this man's roof, living with him, even as a fiancée or girlfriend, it made her stomach churn. She thought of Kelvin's eyes, the warmth beneath their startling blue intensity. She despised the way her heart responded without consent. She thought of the past, her ex-fiancé, the betrayal of her best friend, the months of heartbreak and shame. She could not allow herself to fall for this man, she resolved. She would do what was necessary for her father, yes, but nothing more. As night fell over Chicago, Katherine lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The city lights flickered through her window, mirroring the tumult in her mind. She replayed Kelvin's words over and over, calculating, strategizing. If she could survive this year without surrendering her heart, if she could endure the proximity, the attention, the kindness, she could secure her father's freedom and the $5 million. And her heart, well, it would remain untouched. Tomorrow, she decided, she would meet him. She would agree on her own terms, but she would never ever let him truly in. Little did she know, Kelvin Bradford was already planning every detail, every gentle act, every thoughtful gesture that would slowly, irresistibly chip away at her defenses. And no matter how resolved she felt tonight, tomorrow's sunrise would mark the beginning of a year that neither of them would forget. The next morning, Katherine Davis woke to the persistent buzz of her phone. A message from Kelvin Bradford blinked on the screen. "I'll be at your office in 1 hour. We'll discuss the arrangements." Her chest tightened, a mixture of dread and curiosity swirling inside her. She had spent the night turning over the decision, weighing the impossibility of repaying her father's debt against the absurdity of this arrangement. She wasn't naive. She knew Kelvin Bradford's family was ruthless, but there was something different about him. The kindness in his eyes lingered in her mind, despite her initial outrage. By the time she arrived at her office, Katherine was composed, professional, yet her pulse refused to settle. Her colleagues noticed her distracted expression, but she offered polite smiles and kept her head down. Banking was her refuge, the one place where she could channel her mind away from the chaos of her family's finances and the sudden intrusion of this stranger-turned-proposal giver. At precisely 10, her office door opened, and Kelvin stepped in. His presence filled the room instantly. Tall, commanding, yet gentle. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, his blue eyes scanning the room with the same intensity as the previous day. "Katherine," he greeted, a soft warmth in his voice that immediately made her feel uneasy, yet unreasonably drawn to him. "Thank you for meeting me here. I promise this won't take long. She gestured to the seat across from her. I want to hear the details. I need to understand exactly what I'm agreeing to. Kelvin pulled a leather-bound folder from his briefcase, placing it carefully on her desk. He opened it to reveal the contract. Neatly typed, extensive, and surprisingly precise. Catherine's eyes widened as she scanned the pages. Read it carefully, Kelvin said, his voice low, calm, and unhurried. Every word matters. But before you do, I want to clarify the important points verbally. Katherine crossed her arms, resisting the fluttering in her chest. Go ahead. Kelvin's gaze held hers. During this year, I will never force you into romance or sex. I will never touch you without your permission. You will accompany me wherever I need to go with no objection. You may not entertain any male friends. A new phone and number will be provided to maintain boundaries. You are free to cook for me if you choose. You may ask anything of me as long as it does not violate the terms of the contract. Additionally, he paused, a faint, teasing smile touching his lips. I have prepared your living quarters. You may choose any room you like, provided it is close to mine. We will respect each other's space. Katherine stared at him, astonished. You've thought of everything, every eventuality. This is meticulous. Kelvin's smile softened. I want you to be comfortable. I want you to feel safe. I want you to have freedom while we spend this year together. That's the only way this will work. For a moment, Katherine considered walking away. Pride screamed at her to refuse. Yet practicality, duty, and a sliver of curiosity pushed her toward the pen hovering above the contract. She sighed, tracing the words carefully. All right, she said finally, her voice quiet but firm. I'll do it. I'll stay for a year. As your girlfriend. Kelvin's smile broadened, a warmth radiating from him that made her cheeks heat. Good. I'll have everything arranged immediately. You'll have privacy, space, and everything you need. Once the contract was signed, Kelvin leaned back slightly, letting the moment linger. Katherine, you should know something. I'm not just doing this for the debt. I am interested in you, deeply. But I will respect your boundaries. I will never rush you. Every word, every gesture, every day is meant to show you my sincerity. Her heart constricted, though she refused to show it. I'm not naive, Mr. Bradford. I understand the situation. Let's proceed on business terms. Kelvin's smile didn't falter. Of course. But know this. Every moment I spend with you, I'll try to make you feel valued. Not as a transaction, but as the remarkable woman I see before me. The first morning of her stay at Kelvin's estate was quietly surreal. Katherine unpacked in her room, every detail meticulously arranged. Fresh linens, a private bath, and a balcony overlooking the manicured gardens. She felt a pang of guilt for letting practicality overrule her pride. By mid-morning, Kelvin arrived with breakfast. A tray of fresh fruits, pastries, and hot coffee. He placed it carefully on her bed, bowing his head slightly. Good morning, he said softly. I thought you might like to start your day with this. You deserve it. Katherine felt her defenses tighten. She was not accustomed to such careful attention, such thoughtfulness. She smiled faintly, lowering her eyes. Thank you. You're welcome, Kelvin said, his gaze lingering just long enough to make her pulse race before he stepped back. Respecting her space, take your time. I'll be in the study if you need anything. Throughout the week, Kelvin's gestures continued. A shopping trip to select clothing and essentials for her stay. Kelvin leaned against the doorframe of the boutique, hands casually folded. You don't have to pick everything yourself, he said, voice low, almost teasing. But I have to warn you, if you choose something boring, I'll personally revoke your taste in colors. Katherine arched an eyebrow, smirking despite herself. Is that a threat or a promise? Depends on how bold you're feeling today, he replied, his blue eyes sparkling. But seriously, try this dress. It's subtle, elegant, like you. She took it from the rack, pretending to examine it critically. Elegant, like me. You're going to have to explain that one. I could, he said, tilting his head slightly. But I'd rather you try it on first and see if the dress agrees with me. Katherine chuckled, shaking her head as she disappeared behind the curtain to try it on. When she emerged, he gave a soft, appreciative whistle. See, effortless. You make even simple things look captivating. Her cheeks warmed, and she turned away, pretending to inspect another rack. You're incorrigible. You know that? Only for the people worth noticing, he said, voice softer now, almost intimate, and you definitely fall into that category. Later in the evening, the soft glow of lamps framed the small dining area. Kelvin poured them each a glass of wine and gestured toward the chairs. You know, I could sit in silence with you for hours and still feel like the conversation never ends. Katherine smiled faintly. Is that your way of complimenting my small talk? Perhaps, he said, leaning slightly forward, his tone playful. Or maybe I'm just fascinated by the way your mind works, how you see things others overlook. She blinked, caught off guard. You really notice that? Every detail, he said simply, eyes holding hers. The way you tilt your head when you think. The way you laugh quietly at something only you find amusing. It's mesmerizing. Katherine felt a warmth creep up her neck, and for a moment she didn't reply. Instead, she let the words linger, feeling their weight and sincerity. One morning, Kelvin stopped beside her as they walked through the gardens. Katherine, I have a business meeting in Paris next week. I'd like you to accompany me. Her brow arched. Me? For a meeting? I need your insight, he said simply. Your mind sees what others overlook. The trip to Paris for a business meeting was a revelation. Katherine's analytical mind and sharp instincts impressed Kelvin in ways he hadn't anticipated. During strategy sessions, he found himself marveling at her confidence, her poise, and the ease with which she handled high-pressure situations. You truly amaze me, Katherine, he said one evening as they returned to the hotel suite. The way you see patterns, anticipate moves. It's brilliant. I've never met anyone like you. She brushed it off with a small smile, refusing to let her heart betray her growing admiration. It's just work, nothing special. Kelvin shook his head gently. It is special. You are special. Back in Barrington Hills, weekend getaways to nature became their ritual. He would lead her to secluded lakes, crystal-clear pools and untouched forests. One afternoon, she bathed in the cool pool while Kelvin sat nearby on a rock, watching without a word. Why are you doing this? She asked suddenly, her voice echoing softly over the water. Doing what? Kelvin replied, turning his gaze toward her. All of this? She gestured around, frustration and vulnerability mingling. Why go to such lengths for me? Kelvin's eyes softened, reflecting the sunlight glinting off the water. Because I love you, Katherine. I love you in a way that is patient, that respects you, that waits for you to feel the same. I cannot and will not force it, but I will show you every day that my heart is yours. She laughed softly, bitterly shaking her head. You made me sign a contract to be here. You're bending over backwards to... What? Convince me to give my heart away? Yes, he said simply, almost shyly. Because of my father's reputation, I know you would never give me the chance to truly know you, let alone allow yourself to know me. This was the only way I could justify clearing your father's debt. But if you refuse, he added softly, his eyes steady on hers, that's fine too. I'll honor the contract. I'll still care for you, still respect you, but I'll never stop hoping, because you captivated my soul the moment I saw you. That night, Katherine lay awake in her room staring at the ceiling. Kelvin's words replayed in her mind, soft, earnest, full of love. She admitted to herself that he surely loved her, yet she refused to give in, refusing to allow herself to be vulnerable again. Still, every gesture, every word, every glance was a thread pulling at her carefully guarded heart. And deep down she knew, this year would change everything. 7 months had passed since Katherine Davis first signed the contract. 7 months of quiet mornings, elegant dinners, late-night conversations that wandered into unexpected confessions, and Kelvin Bradford's relentless, patient affection. Somehow, amid Parisian business trips and long weekends at the lake house, the sharp edges of her resentment had begun to dull. She still told herself she was only enduring, only honoring a deal. Yet every time Kelvin looked at her, as if she were the only woman in the world, her resolve trembled. She had grown fond of him, far more than she cared to admit, but she had also learned to protect her heart. Love, she had decided long ago, was a luxury for people who hadn't already lost too much. Morning sunlight spilled gently through the tall curtains, painting soft gold across the sheets. The scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the room, warm and inviting, mingling with the faint aroma of vanilla and butter. Katherine stirred, her lashes fluttering open. On the bedside table sat a silver tray, elegant, perfectly arranged. There was a crystal glass of orange juice, still cold with beads of condensation, a small bowl of ripe berries glistening like jewels, and a porcelain plate holding a croissant split open, filled with strawberries and cream. Steam curled from a cup of dark roast coffee, the fragrance deep and comforting. But it wasn't the breakfast that caught her breath. It was the envelope placed neatly beside it, her name written in Kelvin's unmistakable handwriting. She hesitated, then opened it. The note was short, but every word carried the weight of something rare and real. My dearest Katherine, this morning, I want you to wake not as someone bound by another man's decisions, but as a woman free to make her own. Your father's debt has been cleared completely. I've instructed my accountant to deposit $5 million into your account, so you will never again know the fear of loss or dependence. You owe me nothing. You never did. If you wish to leave, you may. No doors here will ever be closed to you. But if you choose to stay, stay not as an obligation, but as the woman who has quietly changed everything. I thought I knew about love. Kelvin. Her fingers trembled as she reread the lines. A tear slipped down her cheek, unbidden, falling onto the edge of the note. For the first time, the walls of the mansion didn't feel like a gilded cage. They felt like an open door. And she wasn't sure whether her heart wanted to walk away or finally walk toward him. Katherine sat there for a long moment, the note trembling in her hands. The morning sunlight caught the edge of the paper, making Kelvin's words almost glow. You owe me nothing. Her chest tightened. Freedom. It was everything she thought she wanted, and yet the realization didn't bring relief. It brought an ache she couldn't quite name. She slipped from the bed, pulling on a soft robe, and made her way downstairs. The quiet hum of the mansion surrounded her, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock, the scent of roasted coffee still lingering in the air. She found Kelvin in the garden, seated beneath the shade of a willow tree. He was dressed casually for once, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up, a cup of coffee cradled in his hand. Morning light touched his hair, giving it a burnished glow. He looked peaceful, but there was something in his eyes when he saw her, a quiet hope he didn't bother to hide. She stopped a few feet away, clutching the letter in her hand. You didn't have to do this, she said softly, her voice trembling between gratitude and disbelief. Kelvin rose slowly, setting the cup aside. Yes, I did. For what, pity? She asked, her tone sharper than she intended. Or guilt? He took a step closer, shaking his head. For love, Katherine. His voice was steady but gentle. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't want to own anything. I just wanted someone to stay because they wanted to. Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked at him, really looked at him, the sincerity in his expression, the unguarded vulnerability of a man who'd built walls all his life and was now tearing them down just for her. I told myself I was doing the right thing, she whispered. That staying here was just temporary. But now? Her gaze faltered. You've made it harder to walk away. He stepped closer still, his voice low, magnetic. Then don't. Their eyes locked, the world around them fell away. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Kelvin reached out, brushing his fingers gently along her cheek, tracing the tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You're free, Katherine, he murmured. But if freedom ever feels lonely, my heart will always have a place for you. Her breath hitched, the air thick with unspoken longing. She wanted to speak, to deny, to surrender, but all she could do was stand there, caught between reason and the pull of something she'd sworn she wouldn't feel. The silence between them said everything words couldn't. That evening, the estate's garden was bathed in silver moonlight. Kelvin had asked her to join him there after dinner. She followed willingly, wondering what he had in mind. He was standing near the fountain, tall and impossibly commanding, yet his smile was soft, reassuring. Good evening, Katherine, he said, his voice low and intimate. I hope your day was pleasant. She nodded, trying to keep her composure. It was fine. Thank you for asking. Kelvin stepped closer and she felt her breath catch. He stopped just short of touching her, giving her space while radiating desire in every movement. You look beautiful tonight, he said softly, letting the words hang between them. It's impossible not to admire you. Katherine swallowed hard, her pulse hammering. The way he looked at her, the intensity, the reverence, The longing made it impossible to maintain her usual calm. "Kelvin, she faltered, her voice betraying her inner conflict. He lifted a hand, gesturing gently as if to calm her. "Shh, you don't have to say anything. Just know this. Everything I do, every word I speak, is meant to show you how much I love you. I've waited months for a chance to show you that love can be gentle, yet passionate, respectful, yet consuming." Her heart thudded in her chest. She had imagined this moment countless times, but reality was far more intoxicating. Kelvin's proximity, the warmth of his body, the depth in his eyes. It was a temptation unlike any other. "Katherine," he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. "May I?" She understood instantly what he meant, and though a part of her resisted, another part, a deep, desperate part that she had buried after betrayal and heartbreak, longed for him. She nodded, a single, almost imperceptible motion, giving him consent without words. Kelvin's hands lifted, hesitating briefly, before tracing a delicate line along her jaw, his thumb brushing her cheek. Katherine closed her eyes, leaning slightly into the touch, savoring the sensation she had resisted for so long. "I've wanted this, to be with you like this, for months," he confessed, his lips hovering near her ear, warm breath sending shivers down her spine. "To touch you, to make you feel safe, cherished, and desired all at once." Her body responded instinctively, a heat spreading through her that she could not control. She reached out, tracing his hand with her fingers, marveling at the strength, the gentleness, the undeniable chemistry between them. The first kiss was tentative, soft, almost exploratory, but it ignited a fire neither of them could contain. Kelvin's lips were warm, insistent, yet patient, coaxing her into a rhythm that matched her own growing desire. Katherine's hands wandered, brushing his shoulders, memorizing the feel of him, the firmness beneath the shirt. "I've waited for you to feel safe with me," Kelvin murmured between kisses, his hands sliding along her sides, never forcing, always asking, "I want you to desire me, to want me freely. I want you," she admitted breathlessly, a shiver running down her spine. "I've wanted you for months." The words were confession, surrender, and liberation all at once. Kelvin's lips captured hers again, this time with more urgency, more heat, but still careful, still attuned to her comfort. He pressed closer, his body aligning with hers, their movements synchronized in a dance of mutual desire. They moved to the nearby garden pavilion, a secluded corner where moonlight filtered through trellises. Kelvin's hands explored gently, memorizing curves and contours, while Katherine's fingers traced the planes of his chest, reveling in the strength and warmth of him. Their breaths mingled, hearts racing, and the world outside ceased to exist. "I love you, Katherine," he whispered, voice thick with emotion, as he pulled her into a tight embrace. "I have loved you since the moment I saw you, and now I want to make love to you, not just with my body, but with my soul. Will you let me?" Her answer came as a whispered, urgent yes, and in that moment, months of restraint, of patience, of careful emotional negotiation, dissolved into a fervent, consuming passion. Kelvin's hands slid with reverent urgency, exploring and worshipping her body. Every touch, every caress was charged with love, respect, and longing. Katherine responded with equal fervor, pressing against him, yielding to a desire that had been simmering quietly, painfully until now. They made love slowly, deliberately, savoring every moment. Kelvin's words, whispered between kisses and moans, conveyed the depth of his affection. "You are my heart, Katherine. My mind, my every desire. You are mine, freely, completely, and I will cherish you always." Katherine clung to him, her own voice trembling with emotion. "I love you, Kelvin. I never thought I could feel like this again. But I do. I want you, all of you." The night stretched on, a symphony of passion, whispered confessions, and shared vulnerability. Neither rushed, neither forced. Their intimacy was the culmination of months of trust, patience, and emotional investment. When they finally lay entwined beneath the moonlight, bodies and hearts exhausted yet profoundly connected, Katherine realized something startling. She had surrendered willingly, completely and with joy. She had loved him not out of obligation, not out of the contract, but because her heart demanded it. Kelvin held her close, kissing the top of her head. "This is only the beginning, Katherine. Only the beginning of us. There is no contract here. Just you and me, freely, passionately, eternally. Her tears were warm against his chest, tears of relief, love, and release. I trust you, Kelvin. I love you, and I've never felt like this before. He pressed a lingering kiss to her lips, a promise of devotion and desire. Then let us begin this journey together, without fear, without hesitation. I am yours and you are mine, always. As they held each other under the stars, Katherine finally understood the depth of Kelvin Bradford's love. It was not transactional. It was patient, respectful, consuming, and eternal. And in that realization, she surrendered fully. Not just her body, but her heart, her mind, and her soul. The night marked a turning point, a crossing from cautious attachment to impassioned union, the moment their love truly ignited, and neither would ever look back. The estate was alive with soft music, and the fragrance of white roses and jasmine, cascading from every corner of the gardens Kelvin had chosen for the wedding. Lanterns hung from ancient oaks, casting a golden glow across the manicured lawns. Guests murmured excitedly, but for Katherine, it felt as if the world had narrowed to the figure waiting at the end of the aisle. Kelvin stood beneath a delicate arch of flowers, his tailored navy suit perfect, hands clasped lightly, but his gaze never wavered from her. When she reached him, Kelvin lifted her hand to his lips, brushing a reverent kiss across her knuckles. The action, simple yet intimate, made her shiver. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, low and almost hoarse, as if speaking had pulled strength from him. They exchanged vows beneath the open sky, the soft rustle of leaves and distant hum of nature, framing their words. "Katherine," Kelvin said, voice thick with emotion, "from the moment I saw you, my life shifted. Today I promise you my heart, my devotion, and my every waking moment. I am yours wholly without reserve." Her eyes glistened as she responded, "Kelvin, I vow to trust you, to stand with you, and to love you, with my heart, my mind, and everything I am, even when it frightens me." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Kelvin's hand came to her cheek, his thumb brushing lightly, reverently. He drew her close, lips meeting hers in a kiss that was slow, consuming, electric. A kiss that held 7 months of longing, reverence, and obsession. Katherine's knees nearly buckled under the intensity, her fingers threading into his hair as he deepened the connection, holding her steady, worshipping her with every breath. The applause of the guests was a distant echo. For them, the world had narrowed to the heat of their bodies pressed together. As they stepped down the aisle together, hands entwined, Katherine felt the magnitude of what had just begun. The estate had quieted after the wedding. Somewhere between reality and dream, Kelvin appeared, not with words, but with that presence she had learned to feel in every glance. His hands traced gentle lines along her arms, lingering on her shoulders, down her back. Goosebumps rose under his touch. Her fingers traced his chest, memorizing the solid strength beneath the fabric, pulling him just a fraction closer. Kelvin leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, and the world outside disappeared. He moved with care, lips brushing her temple, her jaw, a trail of reverent kisses that made her shiver. Every kiss, every touch was slow, intentional, a worship of her presence, her essence. They moved together toward the bedroom, the soft sound of their footsteps mingling with their shallow breaths. Once inside, he paused, letting the door click closed, and turned to her with eyes that held all the months of restraint and longing. Katherine's hands moved along his chest again, over the curve of his shoulders, her nails grazing him lightly, testing, teasing. He shivered under her touch, lips finding her hairline, lingering along the curve of her neck. She tilted her head, letting him map her with gentle, reverent kisses, feeling the heat of him in every movement. Every brush of lips, every soft touch of his hands along her arms and back, sent waves of warmth through her. Her hands slid down his sides, holding him closer, as if memorizing the weight and solidity of him. Kelvin's hands followed her contours, never rushing, never demanding, just exploring. His tongue worships her body in the way only someone who truly cherished her could. She mourned, trembling as he leaned closer, every stroke a declaration, their breaths mingling in a silent confession of longing, of promises yet unspoken, her heartbeat echoing his own. Each thrum a confession neither needed to speak aloud. Time stretched and bent around them. Each movement, every brush, every gentle pull, every whispered sigh, carried months of tension, longing, and obsession. When he pressed his forehead to hers again, her hands on his chest and shoulders, the world fell away entirely. "Always you," he murmured, voice low and trembling, a confession heavy with months of restraint. She let out a soft laugh, shaking slightly. "Always me," she whispered back, heart pounding. And in that room, surrounded by moonlight and silk, they finally allowed themselves to collapse into one another. A tangle of reverent touches, shivers, and whispered names. Every kiss, every movement, every brush of fingertips was a declaration, a promise, an obsession, a love finally unleashed. The months of restraint, of careful emotional nurturing, and respectful patience had given way to a love that was unrestrained, erotic, and consuming, a love that would endure for the rest of their lives. Katherine knew, in that quiet golden moment, that she had found a love worth every struggle, every sacrifice, every boundary she had once held. Kelvin Bradford was not only the man who had saved her father's future, he was the man who had claimed her heart, ignited her desire, and shown her the depth of passion and devotion she had never thought possible. And in his arms she finally felt home. Thank you for staying with me till the very end. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing from you. Until next time, keep love alive in your heart, and never stop believing in its magic. From my heart to yours, Vintage Mike Tales.